Hi everyone, Erin here, and welcome back to Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching. So, today's podcast is part of a series which is a beginner's guide to hosting a yoga retreat. This is something that I haven't done a podcast on before. I was kind of thinking of like, okay, what do I want to talk about and what special do I have to offer? Because I always like to offer value in my podcast, and I just did a podcast episode where I was doing my own personal processing because part of this is for my own catharsis. But this is something that I have some expertise and I have some value to offer you. I have some tools, I have some tips. So if you are a yoga instructor and you're looking to host your first yoga retreat, or maybe you've done one before, but you're looking for the experience and guidance of someone who's pretty seasoned, you're in the right place. If you are not a yoga instructor and maybe you're looking to host a different kind of retreat, you still might want to tune in and listen because I might have some things to offer you that's from a unique perspective that has helped me. So, just some background. The first yoga retreat that I led was in Peru, third world country. I had a partner, a sort of business partner at the time, and I led it with her. She was Peruvian, and we did a 10-day retreat to Peru. We climbed Machu Picchu and all this. So that was my first yoga retreat that I did, and I learned a lot. First of all, probably don't do your first yoga retreat internationally in a third world country. And certainly we want to get a contract if you're working with somebody, but I'm going to get to that a little bit later in the podcast. Just for those who are interested, I'll tell you how it went. But I have led retreats in Peru, India, North Carolina, Tennessee, many over Florida, and even some up north around Michigan. So I also led one in Guatemala. That's right. So I've led them pretty internationally, and overall, I've probably led over 12, over a dozen yoga retreats. On top of that, I've led training, certifications, holidays, all types of things. So I have a lot of experience. I'm also not just speaking from the perspective of a yoga instructor, I'm speaking from the perspective of a yoga studio owner, which there's more on the line there. I'm also speaking from the perspective of a life coach. So I like to combine all those tools into my yoga retreats because I think it makes them unique. So first and foremost, if you're thinking about doing a yoga retreat, I would suggest and highly encourage you to get really clear on what your vision is. So some questions to ask yourself, for example, do you want this to be national or international? I think those are good questions to ask. Do you want it to be a luxury retreat, or would you prefer it to be more budget friendly for people? Because that's going to help you to target the right audience, and getting clear about that is going to bring in your people. Whereas if you market it as a luxury retreat and then you get luxury kind of people, but not at a luxury price, and then they come to your retreat, they're going to be disappointed. And flip the switch on that, if you get budget friendly people and you have a price tag for luxury and your marketing besides that looks kind of, luxury, but it's actually budget, you're not going to get the signups that you want. So there's a lot of things to consider. Also, do you want to have a partner? Do you want to do this with someone who is, preferably established, who has a following, or do you want to do it yourself? So these are good questions that you need to ask yourself, and then ask yourself, like, how many spots do you want to do? How many days? How do you want the rhythm of the retreat to go? Do you want food to be included, not to be included? So when you're initially brainstorming, which is a really good idea to do if you are doing your first yoga retreat, is to get clear on, okay, what is my vision for this retreat? Like, what's the overall objective? You want people to come and relax. Okay, cool. That might be more of a luxury yoga retreat. Maybe you want people to come and have epiphanies. You want them to do inner work. You want to create a safe space for people to still have a good time, but to do some inner work. That's more alignment with what I do. So if you're like, yeah, that's what I want, then keep listening. Maybe you just want a retreat that's like based on, I don't know, like they're just going to do yoga. It's going to be adventure based, something like that. Then that's a different kind of retreat. So you can see why like getting clear on what kind of retreat you want to do, because there's many, many, many different kinds. The possibilities are really endless as far as what you want to combine. But I would tell you this as far as a pro tip: less is more almost all the time, unless you're like bare bones. But one thing that I learned from my first yoga retreat to Peru is that we jam packed the schedule. And to us at that time, again, first yoga retreat, I had had my studio for maybe 2 years. So I was a bit of a noob. And more seemed like more value, right? And we priced it way too low. So I'll tell you that if you pack too much into your retreat itinerary, it is going to exhaust people, because they're not going to want to miss. They're going to feel weird about it, maybe. I mean, even if you say, hey, it's okay if you miss this, a lot of times people want to go and do all the things because they want to bond with the people and they don't want to be seen as like, oh, why is this person missing this? I'm going to have to explain myself. So making sure that you have a balanced itinerary and schedule that has enough free time, but that also has enough activity and engagement, and then also having time where people bond is really important. These are some things to consider that if you're new to yoga retreats, you might not consider. So let's say that you decided on something in the middle, right? So it's like budget friendly. It's helping people to gain a spiritual understanding of themselves. It is marketed towards people who, they want to relax and have a good time, but they also are willing to do a little bit of inner work, right? It's not just sipping mojitos and laying out in the sun. Those are not my kind of retreats, though. I see the appeal, like I get it, especially if you're working all the time and you're like, listen, I just want to do yoga and sip a cocktail and like be by the pool. Cool, awesome. My retreats are more, people are signing up. There's a lot of advance notice. We do pre-vetting to like I interview every single person, which is a good idea. I highly recommend it, especially if you're traveling internationally. You want to get to know someone because you're going to be spending a lot of time with them. And if they have some crazy in there hidden, well, that's going to come out, and you don't want to expose yourself to that, and you certainly don't want to expose your other people to that. So making sure that you do a pre-vetting process, I would highly recommend. So that first yoga retreat, I learned that less is more, to have a balanced itinerary, and then to have a contract that's very clear, especially with the person, if you are doing like a joint retreat, like you have a partner, making sure very clearly what the roles are of each person, what the percentage is of split from profit. That's also really important. And to make sure that you have regular meetings and communication. So I have done partner retreats a couple of times. And I will tell you this, that most of the time I have found them to be not so successful. Not in the means of like people didn't come, people came, certainly. But I think that sometimes people cannot communicate effectively what they're really feeling. And so if you do choose a partner, you want to make sure it's someone who you can communicate with honestly and openly, right? Because that can make a big difference as far as if the retreat is what I would say successful, like you're feeling really good about it at the end, or if it, doesn't succeed. And then there's resentment and like friendships can fall apart and all that stuff. And I've had that happen once. I have had a successful retreat or two with a really dear friend of mine, Corinne, but her and I are like it's like a beautiful pairing. I find that it's more rare to find someone like that, but our roles were very clear, and I was like kind of like the leader, and she was her role was very clear as far as leading some yoga asana and doing logistics. We made it crystal clear. We both felt good about it, and we had open communication. If you can't find a person like that, if it's just someone like, hey, you seem like a notable yoga instructor, I am also a notable yoga instructor, let's get together and do a retreat, I will say that most of the time it's a recipe for disaster, and people have like secret animosities and they don't have communication skills, and that energy is going to be taken into your retreat, and people can smell it, and they're not going to sign up for another one. How I tell that it's a successful retreat is that people want to sign up for your next one. So, and besides that first retreat, literally all of my other retreats, people want to sign up for additional programs. They want to sign up for the next retreat. And you can have a special offer that you offer people. Like have that if you're like feeling really good about this, have like dates picked, have your next offer, maybe offer them a little bit of a discount. Okay. So, anyways, that was sort of a very broad overview. So, again, if you are deciding to do a retreat and it's your first retreat, or maybe you haven't, had a lot of experience doing these things, clear vision. Get your vision clear. Do I want it budget friendly? Do I want it luxury? Do I want it to be like, they're just resting? I'm just doing yoga. Like, what elements do you want to include? So for me, I like to include in my retreats what I would want in a retreat. I want a physical element, right? I want some kind of yoga asana or martial arts or something that's going to make me move, sweat, and get out of my comfort zone where I can learn something in my physical body. Super important. I like to have a part in a retreat where there's quiet time, but it's like guided and mindful, like thoughtful, thoughtful type of mindfulness activity, whether it's tantric eating, like slowing down, tasting the blueberry, feeling it open up in your mouth, noticing your tongue moving on it. So I really love stuff like that. And that's just an example. It doesn't have to be eating, though eating is one that people can usually get on board with. Or some sort of meditative practice that's going to draw me into myself and calm down the mind. Another element that I look for is some kind of like bonding with the group in a very real way. So some kind of, I would say, like emotional work mixed with group dynamic. For me, that's really important because I have been on many, many different retreats. I take 2 or 3 a year, so I would say that I'm pretty seasoned. And the retreats where we don't have that element, I find that people don't feel as close. Their guards are still up, and they're sort of like pretending what they think you would want to see from them in a yoga retreat, if that makes sense. I see it all the time as a yoga instructor, and if you're nodding your head like that, people sort of have this mask and pretend. Everybody does. Everybody does in many different ways, and a yoga retreat is no different. I see it in my trainings. People come and they want to be like the A student, and then after a couple of modules, they start eating Twizzlers and like cursing and just being themselves, which is what I want. I want authenticity. So then the next thing is some form of adventure. Like, so for me in a retreat, I want some kind of adventure. I love doing inner work. That is an adventure in itself, but like I want to explore something. So, for example, when we were in Tennessee, we did some kayaking, we did some nature hikes. And that was fun. When we're in India, we climb Chamundi Temple, which is 1,000 steps to get to the top of the Durga temple. We also go to a Ganesha temple. We also visit different shrines, and we go on different adventures. So I love to have that adventure element added in as well. And then I like to also add in an opening ceremony where everyone is introduced and we're getting comfortable and setting intention. And then I like to do some kind of closing ceremony. So as far as the elements that are involved in like my kind of retreat, that is what I like to kind of put into the foreground. That is what you would expect. In between there, we have 3 meals a day, right? So we have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And most of my retreats, I like to include that in. I'm doing one in Japan where breakfast is included every day, but then like lunch and dinner, we kind of do together a little bit on our own to keep the price down. So, you want to have the food element and make sure you get good food. Like nothing will make your retreat go flat or quicker than having subpar food. So you have to make sure that you hire, if you're getting it catered, hire a reputable company. Like you got to splurge a little bit on the food. Food is a huge part of our culture. It's a huge part of every culture. And making sure that you have really good food is going to sort of make or break your retreat for the most part. Another thing that you want to consider is doing interviews. So I'm going to do another podcast probably tomorrow as far as like how to market once you get your vision clear. but making sure that you have the elements clear in your mind so that you can get the people that you want is a really important part of the yoga retreat process. You have the itinerary set, you have the vision, you have the meals chosen, you have the free time, you have the bonding element, like that's necessary. Another thing that you want to have is you want to make sure that you interview. So interview allows you to connect with the people that are coming on your retreat so that they feel connected to you. Because I'll tell you this, and I'm going to repeat this as far as like getting people to sign up and stay signed up, is that people get nervous, life happens. And so making sure that you have a heart connection with the people who are coming on your retreat. They trust you. You're selling your retreat, but you're also kind of like selling yourself in a way, because I always look up and I see like the quality of the teacher that's going to be leading the retreat. For me, I don't want someone that's clock in, clock out, teach a yoga class, and then don't talk to me. To me, that's not personal enough. That it's missing an element. When I do a retreat, I make sure that I'm not overextended. I have different teachers hired so that I can spend time with my group, because the bonding part and just being like conscious humans together is a huge part of the selling point of my retreats, because like you get to know me, I get to know you, we get to love on each other, we get to do the practical application of yoga off the mat together. You get to see what that looks like. So making sure that you have an interview and a heart connection to your people, I would say the way I lead my retreats, and I do them a couple times a year. So if you're doing like one a month, and that's like your main gig, I would say, yes, please just make sure that you connect with your people. Another thing I'm going to say right from the get-go is make sure you have waivers in place. One is to protect you, two is to protect your people, and three is to manage expectations and to make sure it's very, very clear right from the get-go what they're getting into. So if you don't have a waiver, there are so many like GPT, AI options that can help you put together a waiver, and then you can sort of like edit it to your liking. So it's easier than ever to get that verbiage, to get that, but make sure you do it. And some people feel weird about a waiver, but like, listen, like there is a way to step into the professional role. There's a way to step into the friend role. There's a way to step into the teacher role. And like all of them can be respected and honored. If you feel weird about asking people to sign a waiver, like you got to ask yourself, like, okay, well, what if something did happen? Like, and I'm liable. Like, we have to understand and like, make sure that everybody has their expectations managed, because sometimes there's variables that happen. There's certain things that happen in my life that I have no idea would happen. And that's just how it is when you do these things. Sometimes people have some kind of emergency, having some verbiage in your waiver about that. Like what happens if suddenly the day before the retreat, like, a person's, loved one passes away, or like their flight cancels. Like, what are you going to do about that? You have to discuss things like that. You have to see unforeseen circumstances and have those as clauses in your waivers, just in case. What I do typically is I don't necessarily do refunds, is I will then credit that person for the retreat of their choice, as long as it's like, of equal or lesser value for the next year. And that's something that I do because life happens, whatnot, but if they're committed to this retreat, then that's fine. A secondary thing, if that's just not possible, then a credit at the studio. And that's just how I conduct business. For the most part, people understand that when you commit to something, here's the thing, it's like you need people to commit to these retreats. You need them to sign up and stay signed up. I'm going to talk about that in a different podcast, because that's a whole thing, just in case you didn't know. If you're new to this, I have a whole lot to share with you and teach you. But like without the people, the retreat doesn't happen. And so having the parameters, having the expectations very clear is going to help you do what you love, right? So if everybody signs up and then the day before, like 20 different excuses, I'm not wishing that on you, not wishing that on me, but I'm saying it can happen. What are you going to do? The world shuts down. What are you going to do? I've had to update my waivers quite a few times. So, I'm going to share all that wisdom with you. So making sure that, again, you have the vision, itinerary, like get excited about it. Like what brings you joy? What do you want in a retreat? And then here's the thing, you get to create that. That's why I love doing retreats, is because like I'm like, I know what I want. And it's, beyond me. I think I'm not the only one that wants these things. I'm not the only one that wants heart connection. I'm not the only one that wants some adventure. I'm not the only one that wants, some spiritual practices and yumminess. I'm not the only one that, wants to bond with the group. Of course I do. I love people. So, so this is sort of like the introductory episode to talking about some of these things. By the way, I am doing coaching, some business coaching now. I have 2 spots available if you're interested in that. Why would you want me as a business coach? Well, I'm a successful business owner of over 15 years. I've owned my yoga studio for 11. I have had a personal practice for about 5, 6 years. I make over 6 figures, and I do what I love, and I don't break my back. I do what I absolutely love to do. I take a standpoint of practical tools that are like, you can see charts and pages, but you can also go into subconscious belief systems that are blocking you. And a lot of business coaches don't have that training. They don't do that. They have like the know-how and they're very logical, which I can be that too. But also, I know how to get into your feels and help you to release blocks, create what you want to manifest, the kind of retreat or business that you want, and then accountability. So anyways, that makes me unique as a coach and business coach. Well, I think that's it for today. I'm going to go see my spirit mother, Franny Hoffman, and I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next episode. Namaste.